Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tradesman Experience. This is the podcast built by tradesmen for tradesmen. My name is Josh, and back in the studio after a couple weeks. Man, when we just go, week on, week off or whatever, it's really odd. Is, of course, Mr. Nate Newton. Nate?
I did show up last week.
Dude, wasn't last week a shit show?
Dude, both of us just fucking were so brain dead that we couldn't come up with anything. There's no content.
None.
Yeah.
I'm not sure people understand that you really have to be in a correct headspace to get on here, especially when it's not alcohol induced.
Right. I mean, dude, we sat here for a fucking hour.
We did.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you want to talk about? We talk about this, and then we wouldn't get any traction, and then we'd pick a new topic, and I was thumbing through notebooks and shit that I have journaled and written, and I'm like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, right.
I just do over.
Yeah.
Mulligan. So we were going to do it Thursday. My schedule got completely jacked, and I was like, I'll figure it out. Like I'll do a solo. You were going to be out of town, in this, which is what happens, right? You have lives. I have lives. We got things to do. This is why we isolate Wednesdays for the podcast, and on the way out of here, you can think of it when you were here.
Right. Yeah.
But you sent me a message and was like, hey, let's talk about morality. And I'm like,
not mortality. Morality.
Oh, damn it. One letter.
Changes everything.
Doesn't it, though? Letter. Stupid alphabet.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, man, awesome. Because I'm always excited when you table an idea for conversation, because that means I've got to do some research. And so I did. I was so I got online, kind of this simple Google method of let me understand the definition of morality. And when I did that, I was like, oh shit, I feel like this is kind of in alignment with what I had been writing about the pain of leadership, which was the podcast that I did last week. So I had decided, well, I'll put that out, 30-minute solo episode, and then it'll be I thought would be a good segue into this conversation with us. And I think it is going to be a good segue into a conversation with us. As normal, we've spent an hour together before we hit record. And
that's my fat ass sat here and ate Chipotle. By the way, I did just get done at the gym, so
you're refueling.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I thought it said Chick-fil-A. It was Chipotle.
Chipotle. Yeah.
Is it the one just down the road?
Yeah, the one. Yeah. I was like, I don't need to eat, and then I lifted my hand up and it was shaking. I was like, nope, I gotta get something.
I'd be like, are you okay?
Is that the withdrawals or is that the fucking? I don't need some food.
Oh man, I've been still trying to be deliberate about my nutrition, eating for performance, not pleasure.
Well, do you know what the fucking dumb part of that whole thing is? Is that I meal prepped. I had a fucking thing that I put in the fridge and I forgot to grab it when I left the fucking office.
I was going to say, I have a microwave here.
Yeah, I know. I forgot the whole goddamn thing.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, go me.
Yeah. Well,
tomorrow.
I was going to say you'll have it tomorrow. I always bring like 3 meals with me, because there's days I haven't gotten out here till like 9 or 9:30, or I come back after the gym. And when you're in here after the gym, like you said, you're all shaky and your
eyes are tracking and shit.
Fuck it, I can't do it. Nobody wants to see me all shaky on a camera trying to do a toolbox video.
Did he just come?
That's a meth addict orgasm. What is that?
Yeah.
So,
because I don't eat till noon. Like that, I don't typically. That's usually when I have my first meal.
Oh, you don't eat breakfast?
No, fuck no. I can't eat first thing in the morning. Fucks me up. Like it turns my stomach to eat in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, I got to be up for at least a couple hours before I can eat anything.
You could always try my old breakfast method. Quart of chocolate milk.
Yeah, that would probably make me throw up if I were to try and do that.
I did that for 24 years, I think.
Jesus Christ.
It was pretty close to that.
Quart of chocolate milk in the morning, that was it.
That was it. for literally for like 20 some years.
And then you still struggle to get over 200 pounds. Like, fuck you guys.
That is correct. Yeah.
If I drink a quart of chocolate milk every morning, I'm gonna balloon the fuck up, dude. That's gonna be chubby Nate right there.
And never mind the fact that you're gonna be so lethargic.
Right.
You don't want to do anything.
Right.
Yeah, that was, I started that habit when I was 15 and went all the way up till 38, 39.
I think that's an addiction at that point. That's not a habit.
That was part of my nutrition plan. 880 calories.
Yeah, or lack thereof.
Yeah. So,
goddamn, 1,000 calories to start your morning off. Fuck.
With like 100 grams of sugar.
Right. Jesus Christ.
Whatever.
Welcome to the Midwest.
Yeah.
You're like, at least it's not soda.
And I wouldn't chase it with a donut or anything. So just the milk, it's very strict.
Yeah, very. I can tell. I cracked an egg in it.
It's no wonder I think I have had a cavity on every fucking tooth I have. What's your diet? Chocolate milk?
Yeah, that's about it.
No. Are you a toddler? Yeah. What? Did you understand the question at all?
Dino nuggies and chocolate milk.
Oh, fucking A. Good. We're like
we derailed already.
6 minutes in. I'm fucking crying laughing.
Welcome back, listeners.
Man, telling you. Well, let's define morality, and maybe that'll put us mentally back on track. I took a simple definition that I took, and morality is principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong. Mm-hmm. And as I was dissecting some of the definitions that I was looking at, ultimately it came down to code of conduct. Mm-hmm. That was really like, this is what morality is. Mm-hmm.
And it's such a fucking crazy question because it's like, a crazy statement because what is right and what is wrong, like it's relative. What's right and wrong to the Muslim is not right and wrong to the, to the Jew or the Christian. Mm-hmm. And I bring it up to religion because that's where most people base their sense of morality from is that there's this book that's to guide them to be virtuous and moral. And then it gets corrupted, within the first couple hundred years of somebody using it to guide these masses of people,
Right. It's interesting. This is one of the things that I like is as different as you and I are, there are areas that we think the same. Mm-hmm. Our thought processes are very similar. And when I wrote down the definition, my first thought too was, well, who's defining right and wrong?
What does that mean?
Yeah. What's the question behind the question?
Right.
And I thought it was interesting because to me, that is probably the best definition of morality is your definition of right and wrong and understanding that you can't impose that on someone else. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the lines get blurred.
Dude, and that's where people get really fucking angry with each other, And I feel like that's what causes so much hatred between different groups is, we have our moral code. Like, how can you sway from our moral code? And it's like, well, like if you look at, I think one of the best ways to look at this is watch how metro people operate and watch how rural people operate. And they typically don't fucking jive, like, They're very kind of at each other, but for what reason? And it's like, one side thinks they know more than the other. But I mean, then the rural people do the same thing. You have the college educated types and then the, labor types. And for some reason, there's like a moral code of conduct that comes out of those two things. And it's like, oh, I went to college, so this is right and wrong. Oh, we live out in the cuts, so this is right and wrong. Both are right. From their respective locations, like the way that they conduct within their sociological, little realms and bubbles, that is right and wrong, but then you put them together and they're like, you piece of shit. It's like,
right. Because your definition is different than mine. Right. Kind of thing. Yeah. I think that's interesting. I really do because on a little bit different spectrum, that's something that I found to be comical is shortly after you and I launched this podcast, as families do, I gained pretty good support from my immediate family until our grandmother disagreed with your choice of vocabulary.
What? Fuck?
And so this was to me, this is a great example of what's right and wrong, because her marketing advice to me was if you cussed less, you would gain more people.
Yeah, but we gain the better people when we cuss.
But I was like, based on what statistic?
What's your reference here?
Yeah, what's the experience? But again, it's
all those years of podcasting she put in.
Must have been. 40, oh geez, at least probably 50 years of Baptist Sunday school teacher. That code of conduct is going to be significantly different than you and I sitting here talking about real life application, real situation, and defining right and wrong in our sense. I think part of the definition too comes from life experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Dude, that plays a huge role in it. And that's where I think that if you want to look at like true virtuous morality, it comes down to the golden rule. It comes down to treating people the way that you would want to be treated. And I think, like, especially like I got a lot of family that's Christian. I got a lot of friends that are Christian, but I feel like that's where their morality starts to fall apart a little bit. It's like, they want to be able to tell people what they can and can't do, but when somebody does it to them, it's bigotry or whatever, and there's plenty of other instances where that same thing happens. But you have to be open to other people's interpretations of this shit. And I mean, I think if you want to get to the most moral standpoint you possibly can, you can't fucking be telling other people what to do. You can't motherfuck other people into complying with your sense of morality.
Seek to understand. I think, because I completely agree with that. I agree with that on a professional level. I agree with that on a parenting level, and I'm not a parent. And I agree with that on a personal level with friends that you have, friends, your social circle, those are close to you. I think it's so important to make sure that you're not imposing these self-created definitions of right, wrong, morality, virtue onto someone else and then attack them when they don't behave in a way that suits your definition. Well,
because I mean, you can see that where that goes in leadership too. I mean, because you're going to have a moral code within your leadership tactics, right? And there's sometimes that we as leaders like to jump people's shit because they don't hold that right and wrong attitude that we do. But it, like you said, stems from different life experiences.
Yeah. There's two things I want to say about that. One is, you're right. When you look at right and wrong, I think that is, it's very similar to a standard. So when you look at work, right, you're talking about leadership and you have a team and you're looking at putting up a standard. Your definition of a standard is going to be different than somebody else's definition of a standard. This was something I learned the hard way when I had the HVAC company. Just because of the different life experiences of the people that I had on my team, your definition of clean is going to be different than my definition of clean.
Right.
Your definition of standard is going to be different than mine, just like your definition of right and wrong. The other part that I want to make was that was exactly why I did the Pain of Leadership podcast episode, was because that was kind of a 30-minute decompression of self-evaluation over the last 3 months. And it was really about me redefining my personal standard. And the pain of the sacrifices necessary for me to make to achieve that standard. That would be a synopsis of that podcast.
Right. I mean, it takes suffering to overcome suffering, right? I mean, I heard Jordan Peterson say that today, and I'm just like, I mean, because I'm in a really, I've been in a really bad spot in my life in the last however long, and every time I think I'm on the upstroke, it fucking all comes flooding back in, and I
No.
It's like, no, you're not doing it right. So, but I've there's that old military saying, embrace the suck, and until you do that, You know, you keep running from it, using, you know, drugs and alcohol and pointing the finger and doing all this other shit. Until you learn how to do that, that's going to be a perpetual cycle, you know? And is that right or wrong?
Well,
feels right.
It feels right, but what level of suck can you absorb? Like, what's your capacity? And that's something I think that is different too. You know, my buddy Kellen, Coach K, that when I would train with him, that would be the same thing. He would like, hey, embrace the suck, because we would swim. The fucking water was cold. I'm like, He's like, embrace the suck, man.
You're very slick, though. You're like a barracuda. You see being a good swimmer.
I'm a very good swimmer. Not that I'm bragging, but I'm a good swimmer.
I'm good at floating. I'm pretty buoyant.
Me being a good swimmer has never got me laid, so I don't really. That's something I wear a shirt and brag about a lot. But back, you know, it's kind of understanding that mentality. It's like, well, what is your level of suck? What is your level of pain? I was having a conversation with a young man at the gym last night, and he just had a plate and screws put in his wrist, and he wrecked something. I don't know if it was a dirt bike, motorcycle, bicycle. I don't fucking know. He wrecked something, broke his wrist. My youngest brother has the exact same repair in his arm.
His hand's all fucked up.
But we were just having a conversation. I was asking him how he was healing up and what was going on. And he said something that in the back of my mind, I was like, ooh, that's interesting. He said, you know, before the surgery, my pain level was a 10. And immediately I thought, well, I wonder if his level 10 and my level 10 are the same.
Yeah.
Because I think it's how you define it. It's based on your perception. So I'm like, would his level 10 debilitate me? Or would his level 10 to me be like
minor inconvenience?
Like, what are you bitching about? But again, if I were to impose that on him and be like, oh, you're being a fucking pussy, because his measurement of pain is different than mine, although we're using the same scale of metric. It's like, who's to say?
Yeah, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
Right.
You know, and you can only base shit off of that. So, I mean, let me ask you this. Is it morally righteous to take somebody's suffering away for them?
What do you mean? In what way?
To alleviate somebody of their suffering.
Yeah, how would you alleviate someone of their suffering, though?
So, like, let's say somebody's about to do something, you know, that's ill-advised, you know, potentially can get them hurt, and you talk them out of it and keep them from whatever suffering they're about to impose upon themselves. Is it moral to remove that from them? Or is it moral to allow them to endure their suffering and go through the process? Because one of them is going to help them grow. The other one is going to keep them at that fucking low-level pain where, you know.
So are you asking this question general, or are you asking me specifically?
I mean, you specifically, right? Because, I mean, I know that we think the same on this one, but I just like having that perspective to people, because it seems like a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to alleviate other people's suffering.
I agree. So my answer to your question is, if I were in a situation where I had the opportunity to alleviate someone's pain, I'm not going to work to alleviate the pain. I'm going to work to put us both on a level of understanding. If this is the road that you're going to go down, I think it's healthy that I know, because traveling those roads alone sometimes that's where the danger comes in.
Yeah, I agree. There's like there's a self-destructive nature to that. Like, no matter how strong you are, how mentally tough you are, I think those roads always lead to self-destruction.
Agreed. So I'm really going to try to understand why you're leaning towards this decision. Why are you wanting to go down that road? Because I think at the point where maybe my help is wanted or even warranted, I'll have a better understanding of how, you know, to work with that individual. Right.
How to coach them through.
How to coach them. I don't think, again, this is me. You asked me the question, so this is me. It's like, I'm not going to tell you to not do something. I'm just going to understand. I just want to understand why that's what you want to do. And having some of the conversations I've had over my life with people in, you know, dark paths, what I've learned is that kind of, it may not shine the light on them, but they may get a reflection of that light and have a little bit of understanding as to why they think that's the best decision.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with all the events that have gone on in my own personal life over the last 3 to 6 months, I've come to realize that you can't tell anybody anything and have them get it. Like, I have to experience things in order to understand it, and it's eye-opening. Sometimes it's a little frustrating. It's like, fucking goddamn, they fucking warned me. But I had to do it, like I couldn't leave well enough alone, but also like the growth that comes out of being that, and like making your fuck ups and having to eat it and fucking having accountability and just, realizing that you aren't shit.
So why do you think we still behave in a manner that conflicts with what we understand to be right and wrong?
Why do we do that? I almost think it's a fucking it's like on a subconscious level. It's the only way we understand. It's the only way that we know. Well, you never know where the line is till you fucking cross it, right?
Agreed.
I feel like that kind of runs along that, and it's like I said, I'm incapable of understanding until I experience it firsthand. That's the only fucking way. I've tried to understand things without getting to a conceptual level of fuck up. But then once I fuck up, I'm like, damn, I didn't know dick about that.
Right.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I don't have an answer to the question that I asked. I just think it's interesting that we do that. I also think it's interesting that, and I think this is kind of where justification comes in, or where we skew morality to fit our behavior.
Yeah, that's a fucking constant, man. I see that shit all the fucking time. But there needs to be a huge difference between the evolution of morality. Dude, what I thought was moral and righteous when I was being raised a Southern Baptist when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, what I thought was moral and virtuous then, when I look back on it, I'm like, that was some fucking snake in the grass type shit. Bastardizing other groups for not thinking about the way we thought and like not being good to other people. And now when I look at what I find to be moral and virtuous today, it's very different. And that does evolve. If you're a fucking halfway intelligent person, those things are right and wrong are going to change drastically throughout your life. You go to the DARE program when you're a kid and you're like, drugs are the fucking worst thing ever. And then you get to college and you're like, dude.
It's like, I can butt chug that.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. But I mean, that's what I'm saying though, is like your idea of right and wrong changes through life experience. And it's as long as it's an evolution and you're not using it to justify shit behavior. Right.
Creating distortion. To justify that behavior. I think part of that evolution that you're talking about is really reflected in emotional maturity, in the evolution of emotional maturity.
Yeah.
And not doing something because this is the way that we've always done it, and not thinking this way because this is the way that we've always thought. I think it's important to challenge the status quo. A challenge is different than opposing.
Right. Don't just be a rebellious fucking teenager.
Right.
Like, just ponder what this shit fucking means, Go sit on a rock and watch sunset and think about what's right and wrong in the world. Yeah.
And again, how does that align with your moral code? And how does someone else's behavior align with or conflict with your moral code? And then, stepping back and really saying, all right, well, because it's different, does that make it worse?
Right.
Is it different? Does that make it better? And if that person perceives it to be better, are they using that as a metric to measure you?
Right. The judgment that comes along with morality, and I feel like that's where we all gonna get fucked up when it comes to our moral codes. It's that we, once we start to judge other people for their morals, kind of takes away from your fucking morals,
I agree.
Yeah. That's self-righteous bullshit, you know?
When I talk about leadership and business, I always tell people, all right, you need to identify what your non-negotiables with your position in the company are. Meaning, what are the things that you and only you can do? Things that you can't delegate, you can't automate, and you can't eliminate. Things that only you can do. What are your non-negotiables in the company? I think it's important to have that standard of non-negotiables in your personal life.
Right.
And, when you look at that, it's like, well, some people's non-negotiables are pretty low. okay, again, now it becomes based on what arbitrary metric? You're measuring them against the only thing that you know, and that's yourself.
Yeah. And what about that guy that's 10 times above where you're at, and he's looking down on you, and you're going to be shaking your finger up, how dare you judge me? But fuck this guy down here. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that sounds like social media.
Yeah,
but, but yeah, that's my point is we talked about in the conversation we had about emotional maturity, we discussed empathy and how to practice empathy. I think just seeking to understand how they define those things and really get to understand if and this was something that I talked about last week was, does your behavior conflict with your standard of everyone else? And to me, that was a good, kind of a good reality check of morality for me. It was like, well, my standard and expectations of everyone else conflicts with my current behavior, at least my past behavior. And that's why, again, the reason I titled it The Pain is because it fucking sucks rewriting your identity.
Right.
It sucks giving up things that are ingrained in your identity that you're known for, like things that you're known for.
Like having a beard.
Yeah, having a beard. If I shaved this off now.
Oh, God. I'd probably quit.
I jumped on a new call this week and the screen came on and the guy goes, "Oh, the way you guys talk on the podcast, only Nate has a good beard." I was like, Nate's had his a lot longer.
Here's his recent development.
Yeah, I was like, this is 18 months in the work. Right. So I was like, I
haven't seen my chin since 2006.
Not because you're fat.
Yeah, because of the beard. There's got to be multiple chins. Have you seen more of them?
I have a picture in my phone from early last year where I shaved goatee, everything. Like it was a clean shave. You told me I look like a thumb.
Yeah.
And I
really skinny thumb.
Almost like a dick thumb. Yeah. It's like, really odd. But now again, it's part of the identity, right? Whiskey is part of my identity. Whiskey and cigars. I fucking love. It's one of the pleasures, like true enjoyment. I don't care about going out into public. I don't care about the bars. I don't care about that. A glass of whiskey and a cigar, there's just something surreal about it to me. And I haven't had either in months now because I'm building a new standard for myself. I'm building a new identity. I'm building new habits, new disciplines. Does that mean it's right or wrong?
You tell me.
Exactly, right? Exactly. That doesn't mean that me drinking and having a cigar is right or wrong. Doesn't mean that me shelving that behavior.
Right. The medical professionals would tell you something different, but yeah.
When I say a glass and a cigar, like that's exactly what I mean. I don't mean a bottle and a box, right? I mean like that good quality bourbon, Breckenridge. Breckenridge and a Deadwood tobacco, Fat Bottom Betty. Good God. Yeah. You don't even talk to me, right? Like, just fucking porch. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
But again, that at what point does that identity become habitual to a level where it's destructive? Yeah. And I think that's important to recognize. It's important to recognize those things because, again, back to, we will distort our own definitions of morality to justify our own behaviors. It's like, well, how do you see that? Right? There's not a morality mirror.
Right.
Where you can look at and go, mirror, mirror on the wall. Where am I fucking up?
Yeah.
You have to. And this is going to sound way either stupider or easier than it really is, but you have to be able to detach from yourself and evaluate your own behaviors in a way that equips you with information to make better decisions. And that's so fucking difficult because...
Especially when you're in the midst of the shit.
Exactly.
When you're knee deep at the bottom of the fucking well... knee deep in your own shit.
But yeah, what's the only direction you're looking?
Up.
Yeah. You're not looking down. You're not looking around. You're just looking up. You're like,
God, I don't want to fucking be here anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that, that concept of morality, as always, I'm always thankful when you shoot me over an idea of conversation because, like you said, it's coincidence, probably not, but every time we talk about something, it's relative to what we're experiencing.
Right.
That's the great thing I like about the show is it's real time, real life.
Right. Well, I mean, that's one of those things that, like, I just had I think having an experience where you act immorally on your own standards, that really makes you rethink everything. And that's the time for growth and evolution, and like I had an instance where I did something I didn't anticipate doing and, said some nasty shit to a person and fucking really made me rethink myself,
Back to conflicts with our own morality, right?
Right.
And I think ultimately that's probably the biggest point to take away, is really understanding and defining your morality. I think it offers really good guidelines, guardrails, if you will.
Especially for like the guardrails on how to operate your business, I think you have to have that moral sense in order to put a proper business plan together, to put a proper operating procedure together. Like we have to know, and it's that this isn't like that's not the right way to use a tool. It's, that's not the right way to fucking talk to somebody. That's not the right way to treat a client. That's not the right way to whatever. Yeah. Fucking fill in the goddamn blank, Yeah. But this relates to business really well. And I don't think people see how much that actually intertwines with that.
Do you think that you can be overly moral?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you can. I think
would someone define that as righteous?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would almost leave you susceptible to the snakes that exist in the world as well. Like if you do everything in the best interest of everybody else, which a lot of time morality gets confused with that, right? So if that's how you're going to operate business, people are going to take advantage of you,
Yep.
Like your morality has to include you. What's best for you at the same time as it is best for everybody else.
And your perception of what's best.
Yeah.
So the reason I asked that question, because we've turned the conversation to business. Part of the RVT training that I've been building, one of the bonus videos, actually it's still on the board behind me, if you can see it. Compounding. The understanding the metric of compound effective money in a service industry. So that equation on the board behind me is about how $15 can generate 11,000 times how many technicians you have. So the equation on the board behind me is based on 3 technicians, so it's $34,020 if I remember right. On $15.
Jesus.
Okay. So I think it's a great example for morality, and that's why I'm bringing it up. A technician goes into someone's home, and I'm going to use the HVAC industry as an example, is you go into someone's home that the air conditioner has stopped working. And when you do a full diagnostic, so there's no skipping that part, you're checking everything in the system, you identify the fact that it's a 3-year-old system, 4-year-old system. It has parts warranty, okay? And you go out and there's a loose connection in the low voltage. One of the wire nuts is either come off or come loose and there's a bad connection. The full assessment has allowed you to identify that. Should you make that repair for free?
No, I wouldn't say so.
You're right.
Is there value in you fixing that?
Exactly. That's the better question. Is there value in that, in you fixing it, and you solving that problem? So when people want to argue with me about charging people money for the work that they do, they think that's not very moral. That's unethical.
Well, keep going out there working for free, and
exactly.
You'll fucking end up broke.
So what you're branding as moral, as immoral, is really undervaluing yourself. You're not creating the best experience for the client because you're creating a false expectation of things are free.
Right.
So
goddamn commies.
When that technician goes out and finds a loose connection, makes that repair, and then puts it on the invoice as a $15, the value of that repair is monetarily $15. It can generate $11,000 a year per technician. Now, I'm going to jump to just a business perspective here real quick because I want people to understand my example is $4 an hour. If you want a $4 an hour raise, that's about $8,000 a year on a 40-hour week. You can generate $11,000 a year in revenue on $15 an invoice at 3 calls a day and more than and pay for your $4 an hour increase.
Shit.
So value, right?
Yeah.
The compounding effect of value. But bringing this all the way back, if you have morality distortion and you feel like your value that you're bringing isn't worth monetary, then you're going to argue the fact that, well, I didn't want to charge Mrs. Smith because it just didn't feel right. It was unethical. It was immoral for me to charge her for the work that I did. Now, these are real life conversations I've had with my technicians. Right. And it's like, no, we're there to perform a service. So you have to.
Life costs money.
It does. and they expect to pay. So I think hiding behind the fact of high morality or righteousness can really hold you back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can really limit you because it's safe. I think it creates this.
There's no conflict that's going to arise from that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very safe place. Now, as I mentioned in the RVT training, I don't want you to steal from your clients. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Use the other end of your morality,
Don't go out there and make shit up so you can add $15 to their invoice so you can get a $4 an hour pay increase. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm talking about understanding the true value that you bring, and you can't hide behind your morality and not charge for it.
Right.
So in business operation, it's a really interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have the moral boundaries there prior to embarking upon this, right? And that makes total fucking sense, especially if you're interacting with clientele. I mean, think about what the typical sleazy used car salesman. What does that dude's moral compass look like? That thing just spins all the time. It has no direction, because he gets to justify shit to himself and change his mind. No, I got kids to feed, so I gotta way oversell this fucking car and whatnot.
Yeah. So my question would be, what are the motivators? Do the motivators conflict with the morality? And if the motivators are money, all right, then you're going to, again, justify behavior through distortion of your own morality. The phrase, money is the root of all evil.
Which isn't true.
It's not. That's not the correct quote. That's not how it's written. That's not how it's said.
For the love of money.
For the love of money, is the root of all evil. So, but again, if somebody's like, money's the root of all evil, it's like, wait a minute. You're hiding behind a distorted, a fabricated quote or saying to justify your behavior because you think that it aligns with your morality and you don't want to charge people.
Yeah. Dumb.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely dumb. So I think it's important for people to understand what is the perception of morality and what is their real morality and how connected or disconnected are those two things. And for me, it was like, oh, they're disconnected. There's a wire cut here.
Right.
And, being able to reconnect those and realign those, now my expectations aren't external, they're internal. And which, back to the motivator, it's like, well, my motivators are different. Right. And that drives behavior.
Yeah, it's not $1 an hour, it's providing more.
More value.
Yeah.
More value. One of my moralities is, add value to people. You know, if you're subtracting value to people, that conflicts with my morality.
Right.
You know, it really does. Like if you're being a piece of shit to someone, if you're causing harm, physical, emotional, psychological harm to someone,
with malicious intent.
Yeah. I'm not talking about putting down a pedophile.
Drag them out in the street, just drop them.
I'm not going down that lane right now. But I'm not talking about that. You know, I'm talking about leadership. I'm talking about personal behavior. If you have malicious intent, like,
because it's okay to fuck up. You know, you can be in somebody's life and they can fuck up and go against your moral code. But as long as there was no malicious intent there, it's correctable, right?
Okay, so let's go down this lane. All right, you have someone in your life that fucks up, goes against your moral intent.
Goes against their moral intent as well,
and their moral intent. How does your morality play out in that relationship moving forward?
It should either grow or maintain the same, right? Like, I mean, you're not going to sacrifice your standard to accommodate whatever their fuck up is, right?
Right. But are you willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater? Right? Are you willing to...
Can't stand babies, so yes.
Get the baby out of there. Are you willing to sacrifice that relationship because of an incident?
Right.
Because of
a fuck up. Now, if it's they deliberately did it to fucking hurt you,
again,
then
malicious
fuck
intent.
That motherfucker.
Exactly. But malicious intent off the table. It's like, okay, well, again, where does that moral compass lie? What is the true value and quality of that relationship of that individual between you and that individual? So, I think this is like morality is very.
It's fluid.
It's very, and again, like it's back to your definition. Like, what do you perceive to be right and wrong?
Yeah, and I feel like in order to, like you were saying earlier, like your emotional maturity matters so much to your moral compass that, instead of manipulating it to justify your shit, you're using it to try and benefit the people around you. And I feel like your moral code should always do that. Your positive morality should always benefit other people. Like it should be making you a better person and making you treat people better. And then, when you fuck up, people are looking at you sideways and like, that's not you, that's, I feel like that's the way you should hold yourself, the standard yourself. And, Lord knows I've fucked that up a bunch in my life,
Well, show me someone that hasn't.
Right.
Because again, this aligns so well with the internal narrative, the internal dialogue. If you've got somebody that doesn't think that they've fucked up on epic scales because they have this own distorted perception of morality, it's like, wait a minute. Back to the whole righteous thing, right? The distortion of righteousness now. It's like, what makes you think that you're more righteous than me? Because we've neither one of us have done anything of malicious intent. Just our behaviors differ based on what we perceive to be right and wrong. So, like I said, show me someone that hasn't screwed up massively throughout their life, and that is walking like this all straight and clean path. It's like, no. I want to see the person that comes.
That motherfucker has somebody tied up in their basement.
Yes, I want to meet the person that comes out of the pits of hell a better person.
Yeah, right. The one that doesn't take their anguish and suffering out on the rest of the world.
Right. That
they accept the accountability and even if things weren't fair, there's not much you can do about that. And that's like one of the hardest things to get over too. When
what's fair?
When the fair just doesn't exist. Good question, know? Like, I mean, somebody comes out better on the other side of a situation than the other person. It's like, well, I mean, is there fairness involved there, or does it not fucking matter? Is it just you just got to fucking move along with whatever the circumstances are?
Well, I don't think that it's that you can say something is unfair if you agreed to it.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because that's like, no, this is our agreement moving forward.
Right.
I think that's a role that victims play. It's like, well, I agreed to this, and then this is unfair. It's like, well, wait a minute, this is conflicting.
Yeah.
So I think understanding that is important. And then, again, back to that internal dialogue, internal narrative, identifying and understanding your moral compass that immediately should spotlight the goods and bads in your behaviors as you define them. And I think that's a really hard place for people to sit.
Right. Well, you got a lot of soul searching you got to do there, right?
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really
It's
do.
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Matt asked me, it was a couple weeks ago. He said something about me dating. Okay. And I said, I'm not tired of being alone.
Right. Yeah.
I said, I'm not lonely. Does that mean I'm cut off from the world and I don't have conversations? No, I'm very lucky right now to have a person in my life that I'm talking to that is just an incredible human being. But I'm not entering into those conversations or the idea of that relationship because I feel like I have to. It's because I want to, because I've been able to center myself, and I don't mean like some zen and take deep breaths and out your nose, and I'm not talking about that kind of shit. I'm talking about this stuff. Talking about that moral compass.
Yeah, the piece that comes along with doing your best to be virtuous, right?
Yeah,
doing your best to be as moral as possible,
and which to me means being the best version of myself. And that is the journey that I'm enjoying right now. As fucking difficult as it is, it's kind of like the story of Sisyphus. The Greek mythology. He was banned through, I can't remember, it was adultery or something, as the story goes. It was
didn't they do the Odyssey too? Like,
yeah, maybe. Yes,
I don't know. That's what happens when Christians get a hold of schooling systems.
It's like, basically, it's like you have to push a stone up a hill. And then when it reaches the hill, it rolls back down.
And you got to do it every fucking day.
Every day for eternity. Like that was his punishment. And I feel like I'm pushing that fucking stone right now. There's no rest at the bottom and there's no rest at the top. It's like
you're just in the middle of the stroke.
Middle of it. It's like, okay, if I stop, the stone will kill me. If I keep going, something's going to give out.
Right.
But let's just find out what happens.
Right. Yeah.
And not give up. And it's
that Goggins mentality, It's like, well, what if I don't give up right now?
Right.
What if I don't give in? And I feel like that's the reason I've ended up in a lot of different positions in my life, beneficial ones too. It's like, what if we just fucking push through this one time?
Right.
What if we just fucking carry on for one more day? And, like we'd be on 27-day shutdowns. And I'm saying that on day 13. And I'm waking up every morning, we got one more. We can do one more. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to throw in the towel today. And then I'm like, we show up on site and everybody's been there just as long as I have. And I'm like, I ain't the fucking first one bitching out here,
Right.
And then once they do start dropping out, it's like, okay, maybe we can be the last one here. Maybe we can be the one to just push through.
That internal competitiveness, right? It's like, what is your scale of giving up look like? What level of difficulty? Kind of like the pain scale I was talking about earlier. Like, how much can you endure?
Right. I've tested that one a little too much lately. Yeah. What can I put myself through?
Yeah.
And I'm learning a lot about myself, learning a lot about some other people, and I'm learning a lot about people in general. And I think that pushing through is, I already see kind of a difference in the way that I interact, especially like clients and stuff now. Like I picked up on them really a lot faster. I understand them a lot faster. And I've always been kind of analytical with people. Like I've always known people really well, but it wasn't until I put myself through some real fucking suffering that it really changed my perspective in the way that I interact with people. And so, I could tell when somebody's fucking softer than Play-Doh and when somebody's harder than nails within the first 2 seconds of meeting them,
Iron sharpens iron. And we touched on it a little bit when you ask the question, how would I approach that situation or how would I handle that conversation? The people that you choose to have in your corner, to have in your life, to me, that is going to dictate the level at which you are willing to endure. because when you have victims in your corner, you tend to give up.
Yeah,
really
you got
early.
an out.
You got an out.
Oh, you did enough. That's all right.
They're sitting there with arms out, waiting,
Right.
for you to fall back. And you could have a dozen of those in your corner.
Mm-hmm. But it takes that one motherfucker.
That's right.
Fuck you, get up.
And that's my point. Like, you got one monster in your corner.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that just changes everything about what you're willing to endure and how you're willing to go about it. And to me, I think and this is what I love about the close people in my life, is I don't fear judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Because you think that I conflict with your morality.
Mm-hmm.
I don't fear judgment from those that are closest to me.
Mm-hmm.
And what a relief that is.
Yeah. We fucking know better than to do it anyway. Because it's like, he's not going to give a shit. Do whatever the fuck he wants anyway.
But even after the fact, it's like, we can have a conversation about it, but I don't feel like something's being held over my head, or it's like, dude, you remember when you did that? Mm-hmm. It's like, what are you, my fucking parents?
Yeah,
like,
right. I'm not your subordinate, motherfucker.
it's your turn to be in the ring.
Yeah.
I'm going to be sitting over here. Go get your shit kicked in.
I'm going to need you to go be an asshole for a minute and fucking let's level out the playing field here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that's important, that you have people that challenge you, at the same time, support you, that have similar ethics and morals, similar codes of conduct. Mm-hmm. Because, man, that's what creates strength. Mm-hmm. One of the CrossFit terms is strength in numbers. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so vital in developing yourself, is surrounding yourself with people that are going to push you and going to challenge you. I had this guy post on one of my Facebook pictures or something the other day. Grew up with him, known him since we were, Jesus, as you would say, the 1800s.
Early or late?
Yeah, since elementary school at least. I've known this guy, and he posted something on one of my posts, commented, and he said, man, I'm really proud of you. You seem like a strong individual. I bet you're a great leader. And as I thought about that, I thought, well, what makes me a strong individual is the people that I surround myself with. Mm-hmm. That's what makes me a strong individual. Those that are willing to hold me accountable, those that, again, understand what we define as right and wrong. Mm-hmm. And my ability to be a great leader is a result of the reps. Mm-hmm. Putting in the reps and making a decision a decade ago to generate a result that I still haven't reached.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting, because this is someone that has been they never had a significant role in my life, and has been completely removed from my life since we graduated school.
Did you guys graduate elementary school? Was that a thing?
No, I meant high school.
Oh,
we went all the way through high school together.
Okay, gotcha.
So to me, it was interesting for someone to completely outside pay me a compliment. Mm-hmm. But the compliment isn't mine to be had. It's to the people that I have in my life, that I have surrounded myself with, that are stronger, that are better at things than me, and that challenge me to meet the expectation that they have of me. And I think that's a drive, that's a motivator for me. That's a driver for me.
Right.
And it's like, okay, if I do this, then I'm going to sacrifice the expectation that I have of myself. Mm-hmm. And that's going to conflict with the expectation that others have of me. Therefore, it's a conflict of morality. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's like, nope, fucking do better.
Right.
So I don't know. I thought it was a really interesting compliment out of the universe.
Well, I think that's a good way to go about it too. That's a direct result of a bunch of other people doing a bunch of shit for you. I mean, what's that old saying? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really worry about being the smartest person in the room.
Me either. Just the dumb mother.
I'm gonna listen and observe, see what I can learn. So, interesting conversation.
Yeah,
interesting topic.
A little off kilter for what we usually talk about, but I mean, I always like bringing some sort of like philosophical edge to what we're doing here, because I feel like it factors in. We should be asking more questions than we're providing answers, right? You know, like, because I've started to do that with books too. Like, I don't like reading self-help anymore. Like, there's some that I'm just like, somebody is like, oh, you're going through this, you should read this one, and I'll do it to try and get myself through whatever. But like right now, I've been reading Meditations from Marcus Aurelius. I can't make it through more than one page, and then I sit it down and I ponder all the shit. And it makes me think, I mean, fucking stoicism, morality is a huge part of stoicism, you know? So that question is constantly fluid in my brain right now, you know? And I make it through one page, and then I love the questions, you know? Like, because there isn't a single answer in there. It's all questions. It's just like, what if this? Or is this the way we should do this? And it's, you know, and the insane part is that man never intended to publish that book. It was like his own personal journal that he was just detailing these thoughts that he would have throughout the day. And it's honestly the most powerful man in Rome that's not sure if he's doing a good job or not. And he could honestly off whoever the fuck he wants. Right. Like, it's nobody else telling him he's not doing a good job. It's himself telling him he's not doing a good job. And he's like, well, how do I do the best job? And so he's just got all these questions.
Do you think there's a balance there between evaluation, meditation, and self-sabotage?
I think that evaluation and meditation is the way to prevent self-sabotage. Okay. You know, I think that those are self-sabotage is an intrusive thought. And then to ponder the origins of it or the impact of it, I think that sort of stuff is what prevents self-sabotage.
It's on the shelf behind me. I'm going to have to start. I've removed myself from reading for a little while. It kind of in phases, and part of this whole rebuild of myself lately, and it's starting to kind of nag at me again to start reading. So I purposely left it here in the office because I can only stare at a computer for so long, or talking to a camera and record for so long. I have to have something. It's easy to turn the television on and watch 30 minutes of whatever while I'm eating my lunch. Yeah. But I would rather introduce something new to my brain when I need to, like, just detach for a second.
Right. Yeah. When I'll read like a couple pages before I go, like if I'm going on a little trip, I'll read like 3 or 4 pages. You know, I'll keep the book in the truck, but gives me plenty of material to work on while I'm driving, you know, so it's silent in the fucking truck, and I'm just fucking drooling, snap out of it.
Oh man, I think I think all of those things are important, and I think the last point to make is this never ends.
Just like everything else we fucking talked about.
It's infinite. Yeah, right. You know, it's to me, the infinite law is knowledge. It has to be forever.
No, it's everything. The moment you got it figured out, life's going to show you exactly why you don't.
Yeah, yeah. And if you do, let me know. I'd like to have a conversation. I just want to know what you have figured out.
Give you $1.
Really like to know. Give me an edge. I feel like I have arrived. Yeah. Anything else in closing, man?
No, I enjoyed that.
Me too, bud. Well, you can find Nate on Instagram at NateNewton87. I am on Instagram at The Tradesman Experience. Email is thetradesmanexperience@gmail.com. Website is thetradesmanexperience.com. And the YouTube channel is The Tradesman Experience. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Get out there, get shit done. Be proud to be a tradesman. See ya.